Happy Monday, happy training camp week, and welcome to another episode of Hornets Daily, your one-stop shop for all things Charlotte Hornets. As always, represented by the good people over at FanArc, and I'm your host, Vance Ballard, but you know by now you can call me VB. I want to thank everybody for joining us out there today, watching along with us. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comments section. You know how much we enjoy watching you guys interact, hearing what you think about what's going on the show as we continue to grow and build this Hornets Daily family here on the program. Now, as I mentioned, training camp right around the corner. It starts on September 30th, just 8 days away now, and we're all very excited about that. That means preseason and the regular season are creeping ever closer, and basketball is on its way in the Queen City. We've got some things on the docket for today. There is some buzz happening around down in Charlotte. We're going to talk a little bit more about Collin Sexton, somebody we've spoken a lot about this summer on the show. But today we're going to talk about his importance this season and what role and impact he could really have on and off the court, back in the locker room as well. We've got some injury updates coming for you. Grant Williams, Josh Green, we've got an update on their status, their timeline for their return. When are we going to get to see those guys on the court? We'll talk a little bit about that today. Charles Lee had a luncheon with the media. He sat down for a tip-off luncheon and a media session. Rod Boone gave us some takeaways from that media session. We'll talk about those today as well. And then we're going to take a trip out to the rumor mill. Not a normal, traditional rumor mill visit. No hypothetical or mock trade here today, but there is a writer that thinks there's a particular free agent the Hornets should have their eyes on who could maybe help them going forward. We'll talk a little bit about that today as well. But you know, here on Hornets Daily, I don't like to beat around the bush. We dive headfirst into the program, and that's exactly what we're going to do here today. Now, I've raved personally all summer about the addition of Collin Sexton. I've said several times that despite this being the last year of his current contract, I do not think this is a one-year visit to Charlotte. I believe he's going to sign some sort of extension. I'm not speculating on how long it's going to be, but I do think that he'll be a Hornet for longer than just this season coming up. Now, we know that Sexton added instant depth to the guard room, that's no longer become a problem due to some other additions and the getting back and the re-signing of Trey Mann, the emergence of KJ Simpson. The guard room has gotten a lot deeper, but Collin Sexton is a veteran in that room. He's going to be a leader to a lot of those young guys. He's also a proven scorer, comes in with a career average of around 18 points per game. But as training camp approaches, as the regular season looms, the question of how important Collin Sexton will actually be to this team becomes more and more relevant. Charlotte's going to need to lean heavily on Sexton's for much more than just his 18 points a game and his nearly 5 points a game or 5 assists per game that he averaged last year. And as I mentioned, it's going to be mostly in terms of that veteran leadership role. Sexton is going to slip into that role here in Charlotte, into a locker room full of what are very young guys, especially at the guard position. There's a lot of rookies, second-year guys. Even LaMelo, he's a young 25-year-old as well. So Sexton is going to be one of the older guys in that guard room, and he's going to be important as he's got proven experience. He knows how to conduct himself at the NBA level. He knows how to score. He's proven that he can do that, so it's going to be important for him to reflect on those young guys and then learn from him as well. The Hornets can also use Collin Sexton to help get the most out of LaMelo Ball in more ways than one. The two are already building a relationship, as Charles Lee talked about in that luncheon, which we'll dive into here in a little bit. But Rod Boone said that said that Charles Lee talking about Collin Sexton said he elevates the whole environment when he's in the building, when he's in the gym, when he's at a workout, whatever it may be. Sexton will really take things to that next level. He knows how to get the most out of guys in just a practice setting, so I'm sure he'll be able to carry that over onto the game court as well. And I've said on this show before, I also think that Sexton can take some of the workload off of LaMelo Ball, which could go a long way towards potentially keeping LaMelo healthy as well throughout the season. Sexton will be there to kind of give LaMelo some rest. He'll be able to take some of the minutes away, whether he be in the starting lineup or coming off the bench. That's still to be determined. I think it's getting pretty close and pretty safe to say he'll be a starter on opening night, but we still are, of course, waiting to see that for sure and to be officially announced. But no matter where he plays, he'll be able to, like I say, take some of the stress, take some of the workload off of LaMelo and help keep him healthy longer this season as well. Sexton's importance to this team is now becoming more and more prevalent. It seems like it's going to be much more stronger than we originally thought. He's going to be a vital piece of any success that the Hornets do have this season. And in my opinion, going forward as well, I think he's going to be a part of the rebuild. He is a veteran in the league, but he's not an old veteran by any means. So I think he can be around for Charlotte. He can help them. He can lead these young guys and help them continue to take another step forward and become part of that winning culture that the Hornets are trying so hard to build. Now, we talked about it, switching subjects. I said we've got some injury updates on the show today. It's going to be a Josh Green and Grant Williams injury updates as training camp is just 8 days away. We mentioned that already as well. It is official now that those two will miss training camp. Again, that's no real surprise when we're talking about Grant Williams. We've known pretty much the whole summer his timeline is more than likely closer to Christmas. It originally looked like it was going to be maybe even after Christmas, but it seems Grant Williams may be ahead of schedule and should be returning right around or even a little bit before Christmas, which will be nice. There was optimism originally that Josh Green's shoulder would heal and his rehab would have him far enough along to participate in training camp, but that is not the case, unfortunately, for the Australian wing that the Hornets signed last year. Now, missing camp is a much bigger blow, in my opinion, for Josh Green than it is Grant Williams. We know more about what we're going to get from Grant Williams when he returns. We understand the role and the impact he's going to have on the Hornets rotation, but Josh Green, however, was still very much fighting for his role, fighting to show what impact he was going to have. Is there even a spot for him in the rotation? And now he's not going to have the chance to prove that in training camp in the preseason, which is unfortunate for Green. If we're being honest, it stinks he's not going to have the chance to earn his opportunity to prove himself, prove his worth on this team after what was a disappointing year last year prior to injuring his shoulder. The wing could have really used that opportunity here in training camp to, like I say, earn his spot in the rotation, showed that the Hornets could benefit from having him on the floor as a member. But it's starting to look like he too could be out until around the November-December time period in the year. There's no official timeline for his return, but it is being speculated now that it looks like it's going to be much longer than originally thought, maybe even into November or early December, like I said. Now, what this does for Green, I fear it puts him in even more danger of being one of those last two roster cuts or that have to get the number down to 15. It could also put him in a real dangerous spot of being an expendable piece in a trade package. We know when he does come back, he still has a little bit of value as a piece in a package deal. He's still a young player. He does have some 3-and-D potential in there, and he's shown flashes here and there, but it was an overall disappointing year from him. So if the Hornets do decide to package him into a deal, it would make sense. It would be understood, and him not being able to be on the floor or be available for this team this early, it could potentially result in him being either waived, cut, or put into a trade package somehow. Now, another thing this news will do is it will carve out a much larger role for the rookies like Con Knipple, Sion James, Liam McNeely. Now, not necessarily Con as much. We kind of know he's going to have a big impact. We know what role. We're understanding more what role he's going to play with the Hornets this season. But Liam McNeely and Sion James, specifically McNeely, will now be thrust into a more prevalent role. He'll be forced into some more minutes now that the wing depth without Josh Green. We knew it was going to be without Grant Williams for a while, but now without Josh Green to start the season, the wing depth gets a little bit less, and now McNeely will have to play a larger role. But as you know, I'm very high on Liam McNeely, so I actually think this could be a very good thing for the Hornets in terms of their development, in terms of getting Liam McNeely a chance to learn on the go in real time. I think he's more prepared for the NBA than we originally thought when he was drafted, and he'll be just fine, and he'll even have a positive impact on this team when he is forced into some more meaningful minutes than originally planned when he was selected. Now, we've talked about a couple of different pieces from the Charles Lee luncheon, but Charles Lee did recently sit down with the media for a tip-off lunch to kind of discuss the upcoming training camp to get ready for preseason and for the regular season, which is just a month away now. Rod Boone of the Charlotte Observer, as we mentioned, he gave us his biggest takeaways from the media session where Charles Lee spoke. And some of those subjects featured things like Brandon Miller's growth, the rookie's progress this summer, LaMelo and Collin Sexton's relationship, which we talked about a little bit, and of course those injury updates that we just gave. But when it comes down to on-the-court things featuring Brandon Miller, that was one of the things Charles Lee talked about. He didn't really say anything unknown about Miller's on-the-court game. He expects him to take that next step forward. He expects him to continue to get better on both ends of the floor, much like he was showing signs of doing prior to the wrist injury. He said that the wrist injury rehab is coming along nicely throughout Brandon Miller has done exactly what he needed to do in rehab throughout the summer. He should be ready to go come the start of the regular season. He'll be a participant in training camp, which will be nice to see. But what I found the most intriguing were Charles Lee's comments about Brandon Miller becoming a better leader within the Hornets organization. He said that Miller's been leading film sessions more often than not this summer. He's taken the young guys under his wing and become a real mentor to some of the young guys in the locker room. Specifically, Charles Lee mentioned Nick Smith Jr. being a guy that Brandon Miller has really been mentoring with this offseason. And this is a big part of that superstar development that the media has been talking about when it comes to Brandon Miller all summer, saying how crucial it is, saying how important it is, saying that the Hornets will go nowhere if Brandon Miller doesn't play like a superstar. I believe that's how Zach Lowe put it when he was discussing the subject earlier this summer. And that these are only signs that Brandon Miller is taking that step to try and become closer to an NBA superstar. I don't think he's quite there yet or even ready for it in year 3, but maturing at this stage of his career, helping and understanding that he has a leadership role on this team now is a sign that he is ready and willing to step into that superstar role when it is his time and when things do finally click for him, which I think they will start to as this year unfolds. And Brandon Miller is due for a very big year 3 here in Charlotte. Now, when discussing the rookies that Brandon Miller has been mentoring and leading film sessions for, Charles Lee again mentioned the buzzword that we've heard all summer, that we've heard over and over throughout the draft process, throughout the draft reasoning, throughout the YouTube videos, the workouts that we've seen, and that word, of course, is competitiveness. He said that the rookies are competing at a very high level every day, and they're only getting better with each workout session, with each practice, with each visit to the gym. Boone also mentioned, however, one fun nugget he dropped in there was that Charles Lee has a part of him that sees Ryan Kalkbrenner has the ability or the potential to morph into a player comparable to Brook Lopez, which is a very good sign if you ask me. I know that's something we've talked about here on the show. We know about the lack of center depth. We know about the questions surrounding the big man position, but we've also started to talk a little in the last probably month or so that it's feeling like the people inside the building, Charles Lee, Jeff Peterson, the rest of the Hornets organization or staff and organization is starting to feel like they have something that we don't know about in that center room. They're more optimistic about the guys they have on the roster at that position, and if Kalkbrenner is one of those guys, if Kalkbrenner can, obviously probably not in his rookie year, but if he can potentially develop into a Brook Lopez type of player, that would be huge for the Hornets and their current depth in that center room. Now, something we talked about a little bit already, of course, was LaMelo Ball and Collin Sexton's relationship and how Lee spoke about that. He said, of course, they're developing a nice relationship. They're spending time together both on and off the court. They're communicating very well. They're talking a lot, watching film, working out together. they're building the relationship that is going to be necessary for them two to play together and have that chemistry on the court. Now, he also said that he expects Collin Sexton to help LaMelo become a better leader on the team, both by example and just by, as we mentioned, elevating the environment. You can only be around a guy like that for so long before he starts to rub off on you a little bit, and I think some of those leadership traits will fall down and into LaMelo Ball. It's already been talked about by Charles Lee himself, actually, that LaMelo has taken another step forward to become a leader in the offseason. He's been around the rookies' workouts. He's been doing his own workouts in the gym. He's hitting personal records in the gym. I know that doesn't mean a whole lot, but it still could bode well for his work ethic and for his effort that he's willing to give. The most important part of the LaMelo Ball Collin Sexton conversation that I found that I took away from Rod Boone and Charles Lee's talk was Lee said that he's seen LaMelo take a step forward. He's making great progress on the defensive end of the floor, and that is going to be vital. As you know, we've talked a couple times about that being one of the keys to LaMelo becoming an improved player and taking a next step forward on this team anyway is going to be his defensive efficiency and his ability to become a better defender overall on that end of the floor. So if Charles Lee sees that happening already in the offseason, that's a good sign, as he knows how to coach defense. He's a very defensive-minded coach, so he'll only be able to help LaMelo continue to get better on that end of the floor should he be available. Now, we talked about it. I told you we're going to wrap this show up with a visit out to our favorite spot, the Rumor Mill. Wouldn't be an episode of Hornets Daily without a trip to the Rumor Mill. Not a traditional one, though, as I said, not a hypothetical trade or a mock trade, but more from our buddy Colin Keene over at Sports Illustrated, who, if you remember, we broke down his marquee matchups last week on the show. He gave us 5 plus a bonus potential big wins that the Hornets could get and put themselves on the NBA radar this season. Go back and watch those from last week. If you missed those, there's some interesting things there, some real chances for the Hornets to get some big wins both on and off of national television. But this week, Colin Keene thinks there may be a free agent looming around that the Hornets should have on their radar. Keene thinks that the Hornets should be keeping an eye on the status or potential signing of Bol Bol. Now, that's interesting because that's a new name that we have not heard thrown around this offseason, and it is late into the offseason as training camp is right around the corner. But it is still intriguing because Bol Bol is a 7'3" big man who can play the 4 or the 5 due to his ability to stretch the floor and step out and shoot from beyond the arc. He's had seasons in the NBA where he's shot 39 and 42% from beyond the arc. He's never really done it super consistently, but the potential is there. The ability to shoot the deep ball is there, and so he is a threat on the floor. You've got to step out and guard him when he does try to stretch the floor. And again, at 7'3", he's a true rim protector, realistically just standing still, but his defense has taken steps forward throughout his time in the league as well. He's never really been able to carve out a long-standing spot anywhere, but I think that sometimes has to do with circumstance or happenstance. Bol is a development piece. He is a guy that is still going to take some time to come into his own. He's done that over time in his career. He's had the chance to spend time around like guys like Nikola Jokic and pick their brain and learn little bit from them. So his potential is there. It just may not have been fully tapped into yet, and it feels like the Hornets could be in a position to allow him some time to develop, to try and tap into that full potential that Bol Bol has. And if they were able to do that, he'd likely be very affordable on this current free agent market, which could turn him into a real steal or a huge value get for Jeff Peterson if he was able to develop him into a major player on this Hornets roster. Now, as we said, I'm not sure. We don't know a lot. He hasn't played a whole lot of basketball. He has played in 202 games in the NBA, but he doesn't have a super high minute load in those games. So I'm not sure that he'd come in and be a starter at the center position or the 4 position, but he would add some very much needed depth to the big man spot, both 4 and 5, honestly, but he would add some much needed depth. We've talked about that even on the show today, the lack of depth at the Hornets position, or at the Hornets center position. We all know they could certainly use that depth. And at just 25 years old, if the Hornets could get the A game out of Bol, he could become a fantastic addition to the Hornets in the long term, as well as he too is a younger guy who could be a part of this Hornets rebuild if it were to work out that way. Again, this is not a flashy move or one that would rock the league, shake up the world, or even really probably get a whole lot of notice at first, but it could add some real extra depth to a position that, as much as I have said I believe in the guys that the Hornets have, I've decided to take that stance and go with the centers that are on the roster now. It's obvious that depth is always a good thing, so I won't act like that would be a problem, or it would be crazy to sign Bol Bol if the Hornets found a way to do so, just because adding another body, adding some more, another guy to take some minutes away from the 3 centers that are currently on the roster would be a nice addition. There's no denying that. And Bol Bol comes in with some NBA experience. As I mentioned, he's played in 202 games. He's played for the Denver Nuggets, for the Orlando Magic. He's played alongside Nikola Jokic. He's played alongside other guys who could have really helped him learn and develop themselves in the NBA, and then getting into a room with a veteran like Mason Plumlee, who also knows his way around the league, could once again potentially help tap into some of that untapped potential that Bol Bol does have. That will be very interesting to watch. It'll be something we keep an eye on, as we, of course, are just 8 days away from training camp and the roster cuts that still loom. The Hornets have 17 guys, have to get it down to 15, so that is also going to be something to keep an eye on going forward. But that's going to do it for today's show. As always, thanks for watching along with us. If you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. Leave a comment down in the comment section. Hit the like button. Let me know what you guys think about what's going on the show today. How excited are you for training camp? How optimistic are you going into training camp and going into the preseason, heading to the regular season? We'll talk about some optimism and some things like that, some expectations going forward this week as we get closer to the start of training camp on September 30th. As always, thanks so much. We'll see you here tomorrow on another episode of Hornets Daily.